welcome everyone to another episode of the Hector and Mike Experience, Common Sense in an Uncommon World. And Mike, it was nice catching up with seeing you last week. You and Julie there in Los Angeles, and I know we haven't gotten together here to do one of these podcasts in a little bit, but man, do we've got some stuff going on. Uh,
Common sense is anything but.
you're
It's a
right.
commodity.
Well, and the funny thing is, we were kind of chit chatting talking this morning, and you got this school in Dublin that is trying to put forth this equity grading, and what they're doing is they're getting rid of D's and F's in order to, I don't know, make it easier on students, try to
Well,
create less pressure.
it's first of all, Dublin, for those that don't know, it's not in Ireland, it's up in Northern California, in the Bay Area. So, A, no big surprise there. B, it's what it does basically is to create a situation where it's almost virtually impossible to get an A. You literally have to score 100%. It does things like doesn't penalize you for turning in your assignments late. It also, some of the way they do it also says you get credit for trying. Even as long as you show some kind of effort, you get grading, you get points for that. It takes away extra credit for people, young people that like to do advanced placement classes, which are critical, by the way, for, kids as they're trying to compete to get into good colleges out of high school. And it's become a flashpoint because you have kids that are working extra hard to excel so they can go to a good school. And then you have others who are, as we used to call it, moping along, not really working very hard. And, they get credit for showing up. And, it's all about feel good is what it is. Everybody should feel good. Kids shouldn't be branded as failures. They should, have every opportunity to fix their mistakes and all of this kind of stuff. And, if only the world was rainbows and candy canes like that, but it's not. And, you're competing in a global marketplace, and you can guarantee that, schools all around the world aren't doing this kind of what they call grading for equity. What concerns me is that it's being done in Dublin, but I wouldn't be surprised, being California, that it's not taken up at the legislature and becomes a general state policy. That wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Well, and part of it to me seems as though, by you institute this type of policy where you get rid of D's and F's. You basically, you show up. And I think someone had mentioned in the article that you basically, you don't do anything and you already get 50%, right? You already
Hmm.
got a 50% grade. But the thing is that, or 50%. But the thing is this just a way to try to increase the graduation numbers, not to show that anyone's failing behind? That to say, hey, look, we have 100% graduation rate, because if no one gets D's and F's, that means no one gets held back. Everyone
Right.
gets pushed along, or everyone gets, high school, everyone gets to go out of high school and go into that next phase without necessarily being prepared and ready to go out.
I think you hit it right on the button. I think there's one element of this because it all stems from a book that was written by someone. I forget the person's name off the top of my head. Oh, Liliana Castrolone. She's an associate professor at San Jose State. I think was the one that wrote the book. But be that as it may, I think you hit it right on the button. What it does is it increases the graduation rate. We know, like in Los Angeles, 2/3 of the kids graduating out of LA Unified don't graduate. I mean, they don't pass. So it increases the graduation rate, makes it look good. But what it does, and I mean, you don't like to see people fail, especially if they're trying. You don't like to see people fail.
Right.
But when you're not trying and you succeed, then all you're doing is a disservice to the people who work hard and are trying. And, this is just, by the way, this should not be a surprise to anybody because you can take this system and just apply it to the student loan forgiveness that's taking place. You have kids that went in and signed student loans, recognizing that what they were doing, their responsibility was, what their payment was going to be, and they're paying it back. And it's taking time, a lot of time, but they're paying it back. On the flip side, you have these other people who signed these things and said, "Oh, I didn't know what I was signing. I didn't understand all the requirement and stuff like that." And and so forgive me for my debt, which the federal government is doing in some cases. This is the same kind of thing. It's like, you punish those that work hard, take responsibility, and make that extra effort. You reward those that don't. I mean, if you want to have a losing society, this is a great way to do it.
But
Yeah, you.
this goes in line with this whole remember Meet the Fockers, where um, who was it? Ben Stiller, the Gaylords, right? He was there, um, and so his dad, who was Dustin Hoffman, had this entire wall of like all his participation trophies, and it was they would put up there, right? And so I don't think anyone were ever first place or second. I think they were like seventh, eighth, ninth place, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what's happened now is we've got into a place where society where you everyone needs to get a trophy. Everyone needs to feel appreciated. Everyone needs to be a winner, and
Hmm.
and I see it. It's interesting. I see it in youth sports. I've got two girls right now in youth sports, and like we were in a tournament once, and we lost a championship game, and they gave Bella like this championship USA softball shirt, and
Hmm.
proudest moment, one of the proudest moments around. She got it, threw it in the trash because
Yeah,
she was upset about the game, right? She was
right.
and I'm like, it's okay. You're good. You could be upset about it. You could be upset about having lost, but knowing that tomorrow you go back into the laboratory and you go back to work. And there was something there about that, as opposed to, oh great, we just kind of went out there and did whatever we had to do and we did our best and so forth. And because I remember growing up as when I was in little league, and we would sit there, and if you got first place, the first, second, and third place teams got trophies. But I
Right.
mean, there was a difference in size. I mean, if you were first place, I mean that thing was ginormous, right?
Hmm.
Second place, still a good size. Third, you
Hmm.
got a little trophy. But
Hmm.
anything after that, you got nothing. And so
Well,
but you sat there when you didn't get any of the trophies, like, and you try to figure out how you worked harder. There was an incentive to working harder. And this is, for me, this is why I enjoy sports. I mean, it's sports themselves in its purest form, not where everyone gets a participation trophy, but where everyone is, okay, you work hard, you get compensated for it by being a starter. You get compensated by being on the field. You get compensated by going out there and trying to win it for you for being the team in the team on the team, as opposed to what we've got now with like this whole D's and F. It just seems like as though it's a culture going back to everyone gets to be a winner, and in life, not everyone's a winner, and it's okay. Not everyone is going to be the. I joke around about this. Doing this presentation at the school where it got into is life fair, and my comment was, if life were fair, I would be 6'5", 6'7", making a living by catching a football on the run. I go, but look at me. I'm not. And so you figure out what your strengths are and you maximize them. And everyone's got different strengths, but if we make everyone believe that everyone is the same or everyone is equal, then I think we're doing a disservice to people, because not everyone is equal or the same, in the sense of everyone's got different talents. Everyone's got different things that they're good at. And if you've got to figure out what they are, learn to maximize them, and really your passions will flow from it, as opposed to just do what you want to do. It's okay. You know, unicorns and butterflies, and in the real world, it doesn't work that way.
Uh, I don't know. I'm beginning to believe in the world in the U.S. today. Unicorns and butterflies might be an appropriate strategy. I'm just impressed that you won trophies when you played in Little League. I mean, I remember playing in Little League. I didn't win a damn thing.
Yeah.
That's why I went out and started competing in ballroom dancing because the first time I competed against some people in ballroom dancing, I ended up winning first place, and the competitive nature took over. And 3 years later, dancing in places in Texas and Orange County and stuff like that, doing my ballroom dancing because of the competition. But one of the things people don't understand, and you don't see it in sports. What you see in sports is the presentation. What you don't see in sports is the guy who's spending an hour a day shooting free throws.
Yeah.
And I remember this one distinctly because everybody knows I'm a Tom Brady guy. When he went down to Tampa in 2020, it was during the middle of the pandemic. He got cited. He got cited by the Tampa police because he was in a public park by himself practicing his throws for like 4 or 5 hours in this park, and you weren't supposed to be out at the middle of you weren't supposed to be out at that time in any public places because it was the height of the pandemic. So there was a restriction on doing this kind of stuff. But he was out there by himself working, 4 or 5 hours on his throws. Now this is a guy that's already had won, 5 Super Bowl rings. This is a guy that was without doubt the best quarterback. And he's out there in the middle of all of this doing that. We've talked about this before. Another perfect example, Taylor Swift. You see her on the stage, you see her at the Chiefs games and everything else, and people kind of hate on her for that and everything. They don't know all of the work that goes into everything that she does, from the creativity to all of the choreographic stuff and everything else. There's a lot of work. And the same thing in school. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it. There were some things I remember that, I couldn't care less. I remember, there were subjects that I had no clue about. And there were others that I worked really hard at. The ones I didn't have any clue about, I got a C. That was for me. Others, I got an A. That's what you put into it to get back. And that what this does is this whole kind of dumbing down, which is what's taking place here, says you don't have to work for success. And it's something that truly, and I really truly believe this about our country today, that may work in America today. It may not work in America after November 5th, but it does work in our country today because you see people who don't do anything achieving success. But it doesn't work in a world that's global like we have today, where you're competing, not necessarily the kid that comes out of a Dublin high school in Northern California is competing against a kid out of Los Angeles. He's competing against a kid in China or a kid in Japan or a kid, in Europe. Around the world is your competition. And not everybody has the same kind of lackadaisical attitude this country has right now about saying, well, you didn't know what you were doing even though you're 17 years old and you signed the documents, we're going to forgive you your loan. There's not that kind of attitude around the world. So I think really what it does is short term, it boosts education, it boosts graduation rates. Long term, it puts kids in a uncompetitive situation for a world that is not very forgiving.
And
Let's put it that way.
in this conversation, this is where I love immigrants. This is where I think being an immigrant is my superpower, because the thing is that my parents, there was nothing but work, and they were upfront. You said, this is hard. This is I can't do this. That was not allowed in the household. It was not
Right.
allowed because mom would berate you for even uttering those words, because she would say, you think that's hard? Try coming to this country when you're 19 years old, don't know the language, don't know the culture, and you're succeeding. And you think what you're doing is hard? Yet you go to the school, you understand the language, you were born here, you got friends here, and you say this is hard. And so, but you would get those. and it would be you would get berated. I would get berated by it, and so we learned really quickly that you did not quit. You wanted to do something, you had to follow it all the way through. And I told this story to I've told this story to a couple people in the past. I go, because you don't know what you're getting into, but you know what you want to do, right? Sometimes. And so
Mhm.
growing up, I loved watching football as a kid, like every kid. And so I wanted to join the high school football team. And they had this thing called Hell Week, right? And so the workout, if you're not used to that type of workout, the workouts could be a little bit difficult. Running
Right.
plays, weightlifting in the morning, conditioning, and you're in the dead of summer. And mind you, while it was Los Angeles, wasn't that warm, still running in pads with the helmet. It was for someone who wasn't used to putting on pads, a little difficult. So here was coming Hell Week, and we were doing two a days, and with about an hour and a half break in between each one. And so this is where most of the kids all would quit. And
Right.
guess who the hell was in the stands to make sure I didn't quit?
Your mom?
My mom was in the freaking stands to make sure I did not quit.
Hmm.
It was She was there the whole freaking week, from the morning to the break. Then I went home, and she was there in the afternoon. But her thing was, you are not quitting. And she didn't have to say anything. She was in the freaking stands.
Right.
And with my sister, my younger sister Yvette, when she took up martial arts, she took up taekwondo, and there were times where they had these squats, or they had these exercises, and I mean, her legs would burn. I mean, and she would be in quite a bit of pain, or when she'd have to spar, and she got kicked, or she kicked wrong, and her leg was injured, or so forth. Mom made sure that that girl did not quit, even when it was the hardest. My mom, you would think that my mom had like a third-degree black belt, because she was there trying to, after practice, she was like, no, mija, you got to kick your leg like this. This is the way the instructor showed me. You got to kick. So you would think mom was like one of these sensei, a sensei there, but
Sweep
her
the leg. How do you say sweep the leg in Spanish?
but here's the thing: is mom, her thing was, you want to do something, you follow it through. There
Right.
was no quitting there. And with my sister, I mean, I'm very proud of her. She ended up getting a black belt. She followed it all the way through, and it had served her well, through life, of not just being able to defend herself, but building up that strong spine where things don't bother her, things don't get to her, because
Mhm.
you deal with all this. And this is kind of where we go right back into this. You deal with all this adversity, you deal with the hard work. No one ever gets to see all the extra practices, or all the extra throwing, all the extra times, the extra push-ups you do, the sit-ups, or everything else, for whatever you're competing. And when you do things like this, where you get rid of your D's and F's, and you try to dumb down a system, you're doing a disservice to these kids, because you're not making them work for something. And when you get out of high school and you get yourself into the real world, no one cares. No one cares about you, and no one's going to hand you something. And the
That's
thing
right.
is, that is where you're either going to fail or succeed. And the thing is, I wish we had more people like my mom, who's out there, just like, I don't, I can't do this, or I want to quit, or it's too hard. Nothing like that gets uttered in the household.
That's the way it is. That's the way it should be, because it makes you stronger for life. And what this system does is it actually hurts people that do extra work. And again, that's a loser's mentality. It really is. It's a loser's mentality. It's not a winner's mentality. And if they can figure out a system to help lift those kids that for whatever reason they're trying but they're failing, either to direct them to something where they can succeed, or to help them learn a new way to learn things
Right.
that they will succeed, all for that, completely for that. But to hurt those that are working harder and extra, like in the article that we read about this kid up in Dublin High School, who's working his butt off, and now he gets a 99 on a test, and because of this system, He's downgraded to an 85, which is a B, because it has to be equitable. That's just plain wrong. There's no common sense to that. The kid scores, to have all of the extra work that the kid does by taking AP classes, by doing extracurricular stuff, and all of that. I mean, I'm sure that kid would like to be, hanging out playing video games, but he's doing this other stuff. They take away that reward for him. They take away that incentive for him. There's something fundamentally wrong with that kind of system. If they can't figure out a way, and it's really simple, if they can't figure out a way to come up with something that helps lift those kids up that are trying but failing, discards or doesn't do, or not discards, but reduces the effectiveness of those kids that are trying, then they shouldn't be in the business of education. They should go pump gas someplace. They should not be in the business, because that's what the education system should be doing. It should be finding a way to help those that want to work but are failing to succeed, to find something that will help them succeed, and to reward those who do more and put the work in, as opposed to dumbing the system down and making everybody equal. And I'm still impressed that you got a trophy.
Yes.
Spent 5 years in Little League. I got one hit, never got a trophy.
Oh man, I think I started playing in Little League when I was I want to say 7 years old. I mean, and mind you, I played Little League, went to high school, did that, and even after high school, I kept on playing fast pitch and then slow pitch. I want to say I played like 28 years.
Jeez.
Yeah, but I enjoyed the sport, and there were a lot of lessons you learned by losing a game.
Sure.
It's the lessons you learn when you gave up the winning run, the lesson you learn when you were a routine play and you missed the ball, you missed it, and a score, a batter gets on, or the run gets scored, and you end up losing by a couple of runs or by that run itself. And there was a lot of life lessons. It's like, okay, how do I deal with this? Do I get anxiety? Do I feel bad for myself? Do I bad for the team? Okay, I got to work harder, or what do I got to do differently? And there's something to that when you dumb down this whole system, you're missing a lot of it. And so I just, like I said, just to sum this up, I think it's a disservice to the students that they're trying to help. I think internally they're probably trying to figure out ways to graduate more people and show their numbers are a lot higher, which once again is a disservice over to this community and to the students that they're supposed to be there representing. So I just leave it at that. So,
no trophy for them.
I know. Well, here's another one that seems to be whether he gets a trophy or not. It's Joe Biden. So Joe Biden was in campaigning out in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, and he's doing his retail politics. We've got an election 8 months away, and it's time to get out to the street and promote who you are. I don't know. Did you get a chance to see was it Donald Trump last week when he was out and he ended up going to I think it was Atlanta.
Chick-fil-A. Yeah, he was in Georgia. Yeah.
You would have thought he was a rock star there. Oh, good Lord.
He was. He was.
Out there, it's like, taking one or two pictures with him. He's there having a conversation. I mean, he just seemed like in his element there. Not like some guy who's got like 95 cases against him, right?
Yeah, true. It's amazing. I don't know how he does that, but yes, he was rock star is a good word for it.
Yeah, and people were, happy to see him, like I said, engaging over there. He ordered a bunch of milkshakes and all that stuff, and it seemed like the old retail politics, especially when you see Joe Biden this last week doing retail politics. I know there's quite a bit on the stuff. Joe Biden ordered milkshakes too. At a restaurant, I think it was Wawa restaurant, but it's interesting because you see the tale of two tapes here. You've got and they're not too far away in age, but you see Donald Trump going out there and just fully engaging with everyone. Then you see Joe Biden in there that, like I said, it's online and stuff, and people are accusing it's like that this whole thing was scripted up in, including the tip that he ended up giving. And it was just, he was like at a dead place. Like it was just, I'd like to order
Hmm.
this. I'd like to order this. And okay, great. All right, thank you. And that was it. I don't know.
Well,
I don't
one.
know what politics is for this guy.
No, it's not. I mean, he hit his sweet spot in 2020. Sit in the
Is
basement.
it?
That's a sweet. I mean, how many times in a campaign have you gone through the thing where you say, the smartest thing we could do from a strategic standpoint is put our candidate on a plane and send them overseas or send them to an island someplace, and we'll run the campaign and bring them back on election night to do the victory speech. I mean, I think that's what it is. I mean, it's a strategic mistake to try and match Trump on stuff like that. I mean, remember he's a celebrity not just because of his politics, but because of his media. And so, it's like anytime someone who's a celebrity walks into a place, people get all excited.
Right.
The thing it reminded me of, honestly, was when Bill Clinton got elected president back in '92, and I forgot where he was. He went into a McDonald's, I think it was, and he was going table to table. He was out running, and they stopped at a McDonald's. This is when he was in his eating carbohydrates and fat mode as opposed to his vegan mode now, where he's so much thinner. And in fact, they did a Saturday Night Live skit on him, going into a McDonald's and seeing people. It was hilarious. But that's what it reminded. I mean, the guy comes in and everybody goes crazy. The president is here, and all this other stuff. And that's kind of the celebrity thing that Donald Trump has. For Joe
But do you
Biden
remember?
to try and do the same thing is silly.
But do you remember what happened with George H. Bush? Was it no? Remember George H. Bush? And this was who was he? Was he running against? No, he was running against uh, Clinton, right?
Hmm.
I think
What
it
did he
was
do?
when he
HW.
went H not W when he ended up going to the dad he ended up going to a supermarket and they were scanning the goods and he goes, oh, what's that? And he apparently didn't know about scanners, how they scan the food. and
Yes, I
so
remember that.
and so they, the press was there and made a big deal. I was like, how the hell does this guy not know what a scanning the food
Well,
is?
well,
But
because when you're the president of the United States, you don't go to your local Vaughn's Market or Ralph's and go shopping. I mean, in Joe's case, to do the same kind of thing at the same place, it's just, I mean, it's transparent, and to do that kind of, and it's not good for him because it doesn't put him in the best light. I mean, it's just kind of silly. The Trump thing seemed to be more spontaneous as well.
yeah.
It was, I mean, that was the other thing. It was like, it didn't, and maybe it was scripted, I don't know, but it didn't seem scripted. It just seemed spontaneous.
Well, and I think for Biden, I mean, we've talked about it quite. I think whether you agree or disagree with the policy, I think he did great for the State of the Union address. He was up there, and maybe he may have been yelling a little too much,
Loud.
but yes, he was a little loud. But nonetheless, he at least seemed he was there. He understood what was going on. He hit his lines, and whether it's a teleprompters or whatever was going on there, but he seemed as though okay, he's presidential. Um, and when you've got him, I mean, I'm just kind of looking at a couple things here
You
that
know
I'm going to
what?
read
You know
off.
what it is? Can I tell you
What's
what I
that?
think it is?
You took
And,
a
and
nap.
you'll appreciate this because you're a UFC guy. There are people that are punchers and there are people that are counterpunchers. Joe Biden is a counterpuncher.
Yeah.
I mean, he is at his best when he's counterpunching Donald Trump or Marjorie Taylor Greene, like he was doing in State of the Union, or the Republicans in Congress. He is. It's something I've seen from a PR standpoint. He is much better as a counterpuncher than he is as a puncher. Donald Trump is best as a puncher. I mean, it's almost like instinctive with him.
Yeah.
But Joe Biden is definitely a counterpuncher. He needs a foil to counterpunch back at, because
Yeah.
when he tries to do it on his own, it just falls flat. And I think that's what you had there. It was, those kinds of things. It just falls flat. There was
Well,
another clip that I saw that actually was a good clip of him, and he was talking to some guy who was an elderly person on Medicare, was talking about how his insulin injections have come down, and Biden was like literally nose to nose with the guy, And that one came across as genuine. But when they try and do these staged things with him, I mean, it's just it's a fool's errand to try and do that and get away with it.
Well, and you've got all the media and fact checkers out there, and so as Biden wrapped up his swing through Pennsylvania, I'm going to read a couple of things that are, once again, his missteps, and they jotted him down. He instruct during his swings over in Pennsylvania, he instructed Israel not to bomb their own city. He
Good
he
advice.
claimed, yeah, Joe Biden falsely claimed that he cut the budget by a lot of money, and his quotes. He claimed his mother didn't live in Scranton since she was 1954. He told steel workers middle class didn't build America. And I'm going to say the other one, he asked Americans, we're ready to choose freedom over democracy. And my favorite, he claimed that his uncle Bawsey was eaten alive by cannibals in New Guinea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they have a travel alert out for New Guinea now.
Uh,
They opened a Bonanza Steakhouse in New Guinea, and they're serving the president's uncle. I,
yeah.
Man, yeah,
It's going to
it's
be a
going to
long
be a
election.
fun 8 months.
It's going to be a long election. Good Lord.
So what I'm hearing here is that by sitting in court in New York, where they're impaneling a jury that's going to include a porn star, a defrocked, dishonest lawyer,
Oh, man.
and media mogul with the last name of Pecker of all things. Donald Trump came ahead this week as opposed to Joe Biden, because at least no one in his family got eaten by a bunch of people in New Guinea. So, I mean, to me, that's a win. That's a win. None of my family got eaten by cannibals. That's a good week. Hey, it's crazy. It's going to be crazy. They got to learn, there are sweet spots, there are sweet spots for Joe Biden. They got to stick to them. They got to, this kind of stuff is just, it just reinforces.
And I know we've gone through this several times, but we haven't seen anything significant from Kamala Harris over the last several weeks, unless I missed something there.
She went to Arizona.
Okay.
They
For the
because of the
Arizona law.
abortion.
Okay.
Yeah, the abortion thing, and to welcome a whole bunch of illegals from Central America coming across the border that are bringing drugs and all that kind of stuff with them.
Well,
Maybe I think.
and yeah, that issue has gotten itself a little crazy. I mean, there's a couple towns in Southern California that you've got local police departments out there saying that you've got these South American gangs that are breaking into homes.
Mhm.
It's like these gangs are going into these homes, breaking into them, and then heading back out to South America with
Yeah,
with their money and stuff. And so it's
probably stopping to register to vote while they're here so they can vote in the November election. I mean, we can do that here in California.
well,
So,
the thing is that granted, I think the part that I think is missing is you've got gas prices on the increase, inflation going up. You've got, I mean, these are things that his administration, whoever is running this damn government, needs to start getting focused on. And the other thing, I'm granted, look, immigration goes to the top of the polls, goes down, goes to the top of the polls, goes down, because you've got inflation and some of these other items. But unless they start getting through with some of these issues, it's gonna be a long, rough election for Biden coming in, especially as we're going into summertime. You've got the conflicts in the Middle East with Iran and Israel. I mean, we've got it through one of our clients where you've got the barrel of oil is going up. We
sure.
sat around $75. Now, I think last night or yesterday it was at $88 a barrel. Once that thing starts going to 90, closer to $100, you're going to start seeing a real impact, and we're already starting to see an impact on gas prices here, and not just in California, but obviously across the nation.
Right, right.
So,
It's well, and I just saw the U.S. government was putting sanctions on Venezuela, which I believe is one of the places California gets a lot of its oil from.
well, Not there. It's Ecuador and Brazil we're
Okay.
getting oil from. But the thing is that what happens is if you put sanctions on things, that means that there's less oil in the market, right?
Hmm.
So that means when you've got less
Price
supply,
goes up.
which is what when Ukraine and Russia kind of throw drones at each other and bomb each other's places, you've got less supply going out there, and so what it does is puts a bigger crunch on everyone else, and so
Yeah.
the cost ends up going up, and so um,
Well,
you know, I,
that's Biden's biggest problem is that every day, no matter what they say about the job numbers or anything like that, every day when you get up, you're paying more for everything you do.
right,
And it's, higher in some places than in other places, but there's no place where it's lower. And their fallback is, oh, it's not as high as it used to be. Well, no, it may not be as high as it used to be under the Biden administration. It's now lower than it was. People experience that every single day from the day they get out of bed, whether it's the utilities, whether it's the coffee, whether it's the donut that they're buying, whether it's anything that they're buying. The other thing they're gonna see, and they're starting to see and understand, is that not only are you paying more for something, you're getting less. So, for example, and I'll use a personal example. I went to the market the other day to get my little thing of yogurt, non-fat yogurt that I eat. Well, all of a sudden it's the same price, but it's about three-quarters the size.
yeah,
So the products that you're getting are less than what they were, but still costing the same amount of money. So they call it now shrinkflation. So those are the kinds of things people are experiencing in their everyday lives. It's tough to get past that when, even if you turn off the TV, even if you turn off talk radio, even if you turn everything off, you go into a cocoon. You still got to go get gas. You still got to go to the market. You still got to get your drugs. You still got to pay your electric bill. You have all of these other, you still got to pay your home insurance bill if you can get home insurance in some places. All of that, even if you block out all of the noise about, federal indictments, porn stars, saying stupid things, not finding the vice president of the United States anywhere. Block all of that out. Every day, you're still facing those things. And that's a reinforcement of, things aren't as good as they used to be.
well,
How do we get it back?
and to go into what the Biden administration, this is, I mean, it's there's supposed to be pros out there, and they're supposed to be ahead of this stuff, and I see this stuff, and I'm like, all right, people, why are you shooting yourself in the foot? Because their message, is when you talk about gas prices, like gas prices are lower from its peak, and so then you look at, okay, what peak is she talking about? And the peak is during the Biden administration.
Of course.
So it's like, okay, so I'm telling you their gas prices are lower from when they were the highest point of which was during my administration.
Hmm.
I mean, it's like, why are you trying to confuse people? Because with what's online right now, and it's so easy to find, you're just making yourself, I mean, you're just hurting your own message. It's like, by the way, once we got into office, gas prices went to its highest level, but at least they're a little bit lower there than when we put it to the highest level.
Hmm.
And the other thing too is, you go out and, we've got a strategic petroleum reserve. You go out there and you want to lower gas prices, so you expend that whole thing, and now you don't have as much in there, and you haven't been able to refill it because it costs more now.
So bombing.
And
Right.
so now what you've done is you've gotten yourself out of options. And the craziest thing I just saw yesterday is that you've got, when you look at polling, not only is the Biden administration or Biden losing votes with minorities, but he's starting to lose votes with some young folks. So what is
Hmm.
their next grand idea? Is they want to go out there and make it, and try to figure out how do we bring in the youth that's more, climate conscious, a little Mother Earth more conscious, and so they're proposing, they're looking at ideas to make it more difficult to produce oil in the United States, because that they believe that is going to help them bring in some of this youth vote to want to be with them. And it's like, okay, you do that, you're going to make it even more expensive to go out and refill your car. And people have got to realize that it isn't just about oil and petroleum isn't about what you just put in your car. There are more than 6,000 products that are made that are petroleum-based products. Everything from our eyeglasses to prosthetic legs or arms or limbs, to the paint, to even an electric vehicle, the tires that go in there, the casings around the battery, the body of the vehicle, everything that's inside. And so you do that, you're just screwing us up even more. And I don't know who's running this place and what the hell. You've got to get your comms people inside of the damn room over with the people who are running this operation.
A little common sense would be good. I mean, the easy response to that effort to the young people, go show what's happening to the Brazilian rainforest so that they can drill for oil that they can send to the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they're underestimating people in terms of their intelligence. Now, honestly, I think that the effort that they're doing, I forgot how many billions of dollars that he just forgave in student debt. That was a smart one. I mean, it's absolutely unconscionable, in my opinion, because these people signed a document. I mean, I have a mortgage on my house. Oh, I was too stupid when I signed that thing. So would the government pay it off for me? No.
Right.
I mean, same thing here. And I go back to what we've talked about before in this case. We say that these kids at 18 years old, when they sign these documents, aren't fully aware of what they're signing for. Yet this government also says when you're 7 years old, you're smart enough to be able to decide what sex you want to be.
Yeah.
That's not just stupid. There's no common sense to that. And so their common sense that, well, environmental thing will help, bring the young vote back. Once the young vote sees what's happening around the world because of our dependence on foreign oil, they're not going to be happy about that. What they got to do is, if they're smart, find more ways to do what they're doing, like with the loan thing, which is freebies, that you and I pay for.
It's not good economically, but it's good politically. But the thing is that if you really want to help out, you want to get more people, figure out ways to make things more affordable here in the United States, not more expensive. And so, and there are things that he's got the power to do, or he can work with his folks to signal over to business and signal over to folks like, look, we're going to reduce some of these strains because at the end of the day, that's what's really handcuffing a lot of people. But Mike, I got to leave it here.
Okay.
I've got to leave it here. I've got to head out pretty quickly. And so, Mike, always a great time getting together with you.
Next time I'll have a trophy for you.
I'll have a trophy for you. All right, Mike. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.